Hello, I'm here at Liberty State Park, across from Ellis Island, here to talk to you today about the history of Irish Catholics in Hudson County. First of all, you might be wondering, why did I pick Ellis Island? Well, that's a very good question. You see, for a long time, this was America's primary screening station for immigration. So, if I'm going to be talking about immigrants, in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, this is really the place to start. In fact, almost half of the people in America today have an ancestor who passed through this island. People from countries all over Europe were coming into this country in search of a better life. No matter what they were escaping or where they were coming from, they all came through here. The conditions here and on many of the boats from Europe were atrocious. In fact, 1/3 of the Irish immigrants died on the boat ride over here, and few anticipated the poverty and discrimination they would face upon their arrival.
I mentioned before that many immigrants were coming in search of a better life. Father Richard Rescovich says that those who live in a miserable part of the world do amazing things to reach a place of promise. The Irish in particular were escaping a great famine. The potato had been the primary food source in Ireland. In fact, some people were entirely dependent on it. Between 1845 and 1849, there was a massive starvation in Ireland due to the failure of the crop. To make matters worse, Ireland was facing grave injustices inflicted by England. There was much religious prejudice against Catholics. In fact, Catholic masses were made illegal for a time. The British also dominated Ireland politically and sent many Irishmen to Australian prisons for minor crimes. They even worsened the effects of the famine by prohibiting food or money from being shipped into Ireland. Thus, immigration became the only choice for many Irishmen.
Now, here's where Jersey City came in. No matter where in Ireland they came from, whether they were poor farmers or rich landlords, they all arrived at this city. You see, New York often gets much of the credit and publicity for immigrants around this time. I mean, I'm sure you've all heard of Tammany Hall and city tenements. But Jersey City always seems to get neglected in the history of immigration. It's hard for us to imagine how different this city used to be.
I mean, can you even recognize this as Caven Point? Or this as Lincoln Park?
In fact, this city soon became the home of many new immigrants, Irish in particular, and as 1/3 of all immigrants in America between 1820 and 1860 were Irish, this immigration had a major impact on the city. What the Irish were not anticipating was that they would be facing nearly as much religious persecution here as in Ireland. In fact, many Protestants here seemed to think that all Catholics were propagandists trying to take over the country for the Pope.
Such anti-Catholic sentiment remained strong in America until World War I, and some would even say it continues to this day. Hudson County, and Jersey City in particular, became a sort of salvation for Irish Catholics escaping religious persecution.
Now, here's a place you all should recognize, good old Grandin Warren. But this place predates prep. Would you believe that the place I am now standing used to look like this?
This is the original St. Peter's Church, which stood where the E building is now. It was built in 1837 as the very first Catholic church in Jersey City. There was such a large number of Irish Catholic immigrants in this area that St. Peter's had to open a larger church. In 1865, it was moved down Grand Street to its current location. If you look closely, you can kind of see what are now Chalou, Hogan, and Mulry Halls. The Jesuits got this building in 1871, and they founded Prep the very next year.
What's most shocking is that in 1960, they tore that beautiful church down to build this. You see, as I said earlier, there was still very much Catholic discrimination at this time.
Students in the public schools were forced to recite Protestant prayers. Such schools included Dickinson, which was then called Jersey City High School. In response to this injustice, Catholic schools such as St. Peter's, St. Aloysius, and St. Joseph's were built to serve those who were prejudiced against. Prep started as a predominantly Irish school. Clearly, the idea of preferential option for the poor was strong with the Jesuits even back then. They understood the importance of sheltering immigrants because, as Jesus said, if you welcome an alien, you welcome him. With the increase of Irish population here came an explosion of Catholic churches in Hudson County, including St. Mary's, the second oldest Catholic parish in the city, Grace Van Voorst Church, which was built in 1850, St. Nick's, St. Al's, St. Pat's, St. Paul's, and St. Joe's. The Irish at the time dominated the Catholic Church here. St. Joseph's Church has a particularly interesting story. The Irish immigrants who were at that time being employed to dig a cut for a new railroad used the stones from that cut to build St. Joseph's Church. Apart from religious and educational prejudices, the Irish were also discriminated against in the workplace. They came here essentially unskilled. It was not uncommon for employers to refuse to hire the Irish. They were seen as a separate race and were not yet accepted as American. Anglo-conformity was still very dominant back then, and there was even a children's game called Break the Pope's Neck.
In fact, it was not until World War I that the descendants of Irish immigrants began to be accepted by society. It is quite amazing how fighting for a common cause can really unify people. The longer a group stays here, the more tied it becomes to the United States, and the Irish descendants are now very much rooted here. Many of the churches and schools that were built as a salvation for the Irish are now predominantly black or Hispanic. Ironically, many Catholics are now anti-immigrant, despite the fact that their ancestors came here as immigrants. The Irish are no longer a separate race, but have been accepted as white, and though they still may be the punchline of some alcoholic jokes, they are certainly not commonly discriminated against. They have especially come a long way right here. Before 1844, the Irish were not allowed to vote in New Jersey. For a while, they have dominated Hudson County politics. They arrived here on that island behind me in search of a better life. As a people, Irish Americans have come a long way in America and have overcome great struggles and prejudices. Thank you.